Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another Ask Wrestle Juice. You guys once again left a bunch of good questions from the crazy week in wrestling. We're going to dive into it. First up, there's a question from MF Steve here. And his question is, what the hell was Vince doing on Smackdown last night? He was doing this.
And the most important word is together.
I don't know exactly what it is, but it seemed like he was trying to say that if Vince McMahon goes, the rest of the WWE universe goes with him, which is horribly, horribly misguided. It was cringy, it was silly, it was self-serving, it was self-indulgent, and yeah, all those fans. I mean, I can't really blame the fans necessarily for wanting to slap Vince's hands and for giving. We've been so conditioned over the years. It's Pavlovian at this point. We've been so conditioned to cheer and hoop and holler when we see Vince McMahon because it's such a rarity, and when his music hits, we just, everybody wants to start doing the strut and clap and cheer and stuff. Even though you should know better. I get it. I know. But anyways, that's what it was. Yeah, it was exactly what I sort of speculated on yesterday's video, is that Vince was going to come out and soak in all that adulation and yeah, seemingly send a message out to the board of directors. Hey, I am the WWE universe. We're all together. Anyways, let's dive into some actual questions from some friendos here. A lot happened. First up, Blake Whitehouse says, if Sasha Banks were to sign with Impact, do you think her star power could give them the momentum they need to get to the next level? So, as many of you may or may not know, Sasha Banks it's pretty much been released from WWE. I'd be kind of surprised at this point if that didn't happen, so it hasn't actually been confirmed. But various people, from Sean Ross Sapp to Andrew Zarian, have said that after having talked to various people in WWE, they feel like it's happened. Like she's been released. They're just waiting to issue a statement about it. Like her attorneys got involved and they had to make a big to-do about it. And so it's basically done. She's been released. It just hasn't been made public knowledge yet, which is an absolutely asinine thing for WWE to let Sasha Banks go and not treat her like the superstar she is. Because I feel like Sasha is one of those people that can really add just a ton of value to your product. So if the question is, if Sasha Banks were to sign with Impact, I gotta kind of stop you there, because she's not going to sign with Impact. I would not shock me to see her go to AEW. That would be a big deal. It also kind of wouldn't shock me just to see her not go back into wrestling. I feel like Sasha thinks that she would want to do this at the top level. So maybe she'll just sit out and try to do more Hollywood for a spell. Maybe write her own ticket as opposed to being part of AEW. But on the other hand, she loves wrestling. So I feel like if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be AEW. I don't think Impact would be a destination for her. It's not a big enough platform. She's honestly too big for it. I know some people are going to disagree with me, but you're wrong. She's too big for Impact. I love Impact. Impact's great. But she is too big for Impact. AEW might be a good spot for her. But again, like I said, I kind of feel like with Sasha, it's like WrestleMania or bust. You know, it's like the big leagues or bust. And so maybe she'll sit out for a spell. And then when the heat sort of dies down, she'll come back kind of like she did before. But this will give her the option of exploring more options. So that's what I think about that. Shavon asks, has the build and announced matches for Forbidden Door been a little underwhelming? Fans had high expectations for the show, hoping for crossover between both promotions. Yeah, it totally is. There's been a variety of factors involved, from injuries to, like, for example, CM Punk versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. That was going to be a big match. That'd be a really cool match. CM Punk got hurt. Can't do much about that. So instead, they're going to crown the new interim champion at Forbidden Door. Mox versus Tanahashi. Still, they're trying to make that into a big match. I get it. I don't know if Bryan Danielson's going to be available to fight Zack Sabre Jr. because it seems like that's probably what they wanted. I don't know if that's going to be able to happen because word is Bryan Danielson is injured. We've got Orange Cassidy versus Will Ospreay. The word is that was supposed to be Andrade versus Will Ospreay, which would have been a killer match. Orange Cassidy is a suitable replacement. This will be a fun match. But yeah, this is not the level of dream matches that we thought it was going to be. Apparently, Okada's not even going to be there. So, yeah. Not really a whole lot you could do about injuries. I get that. The whole Andrade Will Ospreay thing is because of backstage politics between AAA, CMLL, New Japan. That's all coming into play there. With Jeff Hardy out, that puts the Hardy Boys out. There's just, I get it. There's like a lot of sort of factors at play putting in, and it seems like this was the perfect storm of hampering this show from really reaching its fullest potential. And I think that a lot of it is out of AEW's control. I am disappointed that the only women's match they're having on the card is strictly an AEW match. I've always felt that this is going to be an AEW heavy pay-per-view, but it does come off like it's AEW and then a little bit of New Japan sprinkled in. It really does. So it is what it is. It's not all AEW's fault, but I kind of feel like they probably could have done a better job putting together some of these matches. But what do I know? I'm not there. So let's see here. Money Mike Productions says the way WWE was booking Cody like a top star before his injury, will that make some other AEW originals think about going to WWE when their contracts are up? It certainly doesn't hurt. If the point about AEW is we're going to treat you right, the way you should be treated, the way WWE wouldn't treat you, maybe, perhaps, the way Cody's being treated will convince some AEW originals that maybe WWE is the way to go. Or at least is a good option if they're not happy with their role in AEW. Now, the Codys in AEW are very few and far between. There's MJF, and then that's kind of it. I don't know if Kenny Omega would ever go to WWE. I know they would totally take him, but he seems to really enjoy the freedom that AEW gives him. He also has some creative power there. But I don't know. At the same time, I don't know. Maybe he'd want to explore WWE. Maybe that's something on his, bucket list that he would like to check off this late in his career. That's a possibility. And I think if you look at how they've handled Cody, for Kenny, that might be a fun option. Let's see here. Z Cantor says, should Wardlow get more time as a performer to grow his character, or do you think he's ready to be a champion? Man, they really killed his momentum. I mentioned this in the last QA video I did, I think. They've really killed his momentum. Everything from Double or Nothing, it was really a shame how that all went down. The focus was on MJF and his contract and not building up Wardlow to be that next big star. They had the match. It was serviceable. Unfortunately, it was not that sort of special match that it deserved to be. And ever since then, they put him in like a lawsuit angle. He just fought 20 security guards. He had a really bad promo 2 weeks ago. They need to get Wardlow back on track. Hopefully, with him taking on the entirety of America Top Team and getting that TNT title, that'll happen. But we'll see. Jammer Chell says, the scandal happening in WWE currently made me start wondering what would WWE without Vince McMahon even look like, especially now that people like Stephanie and Triple H no longer appear to be in line to take his place. Well, Stephanie's interim CEO, but again, I get the feeling that if Vince is gone and they end up selling, the McMahons entirely are going to be gone. I think it'll look a little bit more like WCW did in terms of the corporate structure. They had a corporate family. They were part of a corporate family, the Turner Networks, the Turner whatever. And then they would bring in executives who had experience in the business to run the show. Right now, it wouldn't shock me if the head of creative a year from now, it would not shock me if it ended up being some combination of Bruce Pritchard and Shawn Michaels. They're running currently NXT, apparently, and I think they're doing a pretty good job with the hand they've been dealt. Bruce Pritchard obviously has been a hand there for a long time, and I don't know, seemingly he gets along with Shawn Michaels because they've been doing it together for this amount of time. Wouldn't shock me to see them and maybe Paul Heyman step into like the creative role, like the top creative role as well. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Bruce Pritchard was the guy on top. Let's see here. Patrick Sparks, Don Wagner says, what do you think the state of wrestling would be today if Jerry Jarrett took over in 92? Who do you think Vince would choose as a proxy today? I think it'd probably be, well, I don't know if he ended up right now, what's going on, he doesn't have any criminal charges. He's not going to go to jail or anything like that. But that was the word back when he had the steroid trial going on and he was maybe potentially looking at actual prison time, that he was going to bring Jerry Jarrett in to run things while Vince was gone. Who would he choose today? probably, creatively speaking, the people I just mentioned, would probably be Bruce Pritchard, to be honest with you. Jeff Jarrett is working for the company, so I guess there's the possibility that Jeff Jarrett would step up in that role, which I would not be opposed to. A lot of what he did back in TNA's early days when he was running the show was actually pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know, some combination of those people. What would it look like today had he taken over in 92? I don't know that it would have looked a whole hell of a lot of different, because Vince would still be sort of telling him what to do in a large picture sense from prison, I would think. I mean, I don't know if you would have had moments like Hulk Hogan coming in 93 if Vince was already locked up at that point, because that might have needed that personal Vince McMahon touch to get Hogan back, to get that title off of the Brett Yokozuna situation. So maybe that would have had a big cascading effect. I honestly don't know. But I think things probably would have ended up shaking out the way they still did. I don't know how long Vince was looking, how much jail time Vince was looking at, but maybe he would have been back in time for the Attitude Era. Who knows? Let's see here. This is a good question. Derek Brightwell says, a lot of guys rightfully get praise for being able to turn any shit gimmick they got into gold. Mizdow, Ezekiel, etc. We talked about this in the previous Ask Wrestle Juice. But are there limits to that? He says, it doesn't feel like anything would have saved something like Retribution despite Dijak's best attempts to do so. William Regal said his advice to young wrestlers would be just make it work. So I'm basically asking if there's any gimmick that even the best couldn't make work. So the thing about Retribution that was interesting is that I think it was a solid central idea, in that it was a bunch of sort of, I don't know, they were playing with the idea that, hey, these people come up from NXT and they get renamed and they get re-gimmicked, and this was sort of a Retribution against that. And I thought that was a really solid idea. The problem with that gimmick is that Retribution needed to be a threat. They needed to be an actual visible threat. They needed to win matches. And when you have a faction that's, threatening to tear apart the fabric of WWE, and you have them lose standard wrestling matches, that just isn't going to work. It doesn't matter how well they perform those characters. That's not going to work. Certain gimmicks, you need to have characters win to get anywhere and to gain traction. That's just the nature of the business. It's wins and losses. If you have a bad guy on a TV show and he just does nothing but take L's, he's trying to, I don't know, murder people, and he just can't get the job done, nobody's going to care about that guy. Nobody's going to take him seriously. So I think there are limits to it if the character is based on their track record. If it's based off of, hey, this person has to be an intimidating threat, will it work? Otherwise, it just sort of falls apart. So I do think that there's limits to it that has to do with the actual booking of the show and the stories. All Things Mario says, do you think the wrestling community is toxic? He says, like the fact that if you support WWE and you're attacked by AEW fans and vice versa. Oh, I don't know, man. I think there's definitely an element in every fandom of toxicity. Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter. I know there are some out there. I don't know, Marvel. All that kind of stuff. There's always going to be toxicity in any fandom. Social media has exacerbated that. It's made it worse. I feel like it's not too difficult to curate your social media experience to eliminate that, though. Some people enjoy it. Some people thrive in that. Some people, enjoy debating with trolls online. I do not. I tend to try to curate my Twitter feed and my Instagram feed so that I'm not exposed to that stuff, because it just doesn't interest me at all. But I don't think the wrestling community in total is toxic. I think there's an element that's toxic, and I think there's an element that really just enjoys it, and they're cool liking one thing and not another thing, and they don't begrudge anybody else for liking stuff. It's all what you make of your experience. Deep Voice Dude says, with Randy Orton reportedly injured for possibly a long time, it possibly might not be back till 2023. Who should Roman Reigns face at SummerSlam? And do you fear WWE might use Brock Lesnar? Deep Voice Dude, you are a prognosticator. He totally called this one. It was Brock Lesnar. I think there's tons of other better choices, but I understand Brock Lesnar is a break glass in case of emergency guy now, where, we have SummerSlam. It's our summer WrestleMania. We need that big name. He has, the WrestleMania match wasn't the cleanest in the world, so maybe they're going to have Roman Reigns beat him clean this time. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that they could build up Shinsuke Nakamura. They could build up Bobby Lashley. They could maybe even do Cena again. I think there's a number of options that are much more interesting than Brock Lesnar. Hell, get Stone Cold Steve Austin. Get him out of retirement again. Deep Voice Dude also said, what do you think of the term smark? I know people have a problem with the term smark. It's sort of a cringy term, and it's silly, and I don't really care about it. I never use it, but then I don't get offended if I see it. It's just whatever. Curse of the Moon says, you think there's any connection between the recent Vince allegations and the ousting of Stephanie McMahon? Well, given that she's back as interim CEO, I don't know. Probably not. I hate speculating on that stuff because, who knows? I'm sure one day there's going to be an awesome book written where we'll get all the juicy details. But it's kind of silly to speculate on that stuff because who knows? Let's see here. Here's another one. Boggy Boy says, do you think Stephanie as CEO will put Triple H back in charge of NXT? No. I feel like Triple H's heart condition sort of precludes him from being able to take on that role. I feel like the creative role is a very demanding one on one's schedule and time and body and mental state. And I don't think that that's going to be the case. Maybe he probably informally communicates with Shawn Michaels about NXT because they're good friends and they used to run it together. So it wouldn't shock me if he had some sort of input into it anyways. But no, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think Triple H wants to. I don't think anybody wants that because I don't know if his heart can handle it. He seems to be at peace with that. He seems to have perspective in his life, having almost died from this heart condition. And I think it's awesome that he is that his duties apparently are such that he can take care of himself, because that's important stuff right there. Let's see here. Interesting. Mitchell Holcomb says, if Vince is somehow removed from WWE, do your chances of eating paper increase? So if I'm not mistaken, I had a little shard of paper around here that said facts on it or something like that. I don't know where it is, but I can recreate it. And I think it was, I said I would eat that piece of paper if WWE and AEW did a super show together. And I think Mitchell is getting at here, the idea is if Vince McMahon was gone, would WWE be more open to doing a super show with AEW? I still don't think so. I still don't think that's going to be the case. I know definitely not with Vince. And I get the feeling that Nick Khan would probably feel the same way, that a super show would put WWE on the same level as AEW, and they don't want that perception out there. So I'm going to say no. I don't think my chance of eating paper increases. Maybe it goes from 2% to 3%. So maybe technically it does, but I don't think there's really any possibility of that happening. Let's see here. John Davies says, if Vince McMahon is forced out of WWE, would they have to temporarily suspend their programming? God, no. Nick Khan would have to convince their partners that it would be a seamless transition from Vince McMahon to whatever the next crew would be of creative. And part of that would be keeping the show going. Paul Batal says, do you think Sammy Guevara joining Jericho Appreciation Society was a bad idea? No, because he's not doing anything else. They're bad guys. He's a bad guy. They have history together. Not really. I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just there. It doesn't really do much for anybody. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. Any other questions that no, okay. Tommy Williamson says Celtics or Warriors. It's the Warriors, sadly. Anyways, hey, Steph Curry, man. He's like a top 5 of all time guy. Check out this video over here. I talk about the sad last days of Vince McMahon. I go into a little bit more depth about his time left as CEO and chairman now that he stepped away temporarily. Or is it? Anyways, check out that video. She's getting some good teep over there. Look at that. Hey, what's this? What's this? See you over there.